Imagine finding out that the religion your parents raised you in doesn't exist anymore. The buildings have been sold, the magazines have stopped being printed, the language has changed, and nobody told you. This isn't a theory. It's what is happening right now inside the headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses in Warwick, New York. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you the single financial decision that proves the governing body already knows the old religion cannot survive the next decade. A decision made quietly, with no announcement, no press release, no explanation to the millions of members who paid for it. But first, you need to see what has already been erased. Part 1. A publisher wakes up on a Saturday morning in 2005. He puts on a suit. He picks up a leather book bag packed with 15 copies of The Watchtower and 15 copies of Awake. He drives to the Kingdom Hall. The parking lot is full. 25 publishers meet in groups, pray, and head out into the neighborhood. By noon, most of those magazines are in the hands of strangers. That same publisher wakes up on a Saturday morning today. The Kingdom Hall he used to meet at has been sold. His congregation was merged with another one 12 miles away. There is no bag of magazines. The Watchtower he used to carry has been cut to 3 public issues a year. Awake has been reduced from monthly to 3 times a year. He is told to send a link to jnw.org instead. This is not a small adjustment. This is an organization that built its global identity on paper, walking away from paper. An organization that trained generations to hand magazines to strangers, now training the next generation to send links. The explanation from the platform is always the same: efficiency, stewardship, modernization. But organizations do not redesign their core identity unless something is being optimized. The question is, what? Part 2. In 2017, the Jehovah's Witnesses branch office in London sold a property known as the London Bethel for roughly £13.5 million. In 2020, the same organization sold Watchtower Farms in New York. In 2024, the Canadian branch headquarters in Georgetown was listed for sale. In the United States alone, researchers tracking Kingdom Hall sales have documented thousands of buildings sold over the past decade. Congregations that owned their halls outright, built with decades of voluntary labor and donations, were told to merge with neighboring congregations. The buildings were then listed, sold, and the proceeds were sent upward through the organization's legal structures. The local congregations that paid for those halls received nothing. The sales are justified as consolidation. The money is described as being used for the worldwide work. But follow where that money went. It didn't go back into local religious life. It went into something very different: the expansion at Warwick, the broadcasting studios, the recording infrastructure, the video production facilities. These are not the investments of a traditional religion built around local congregations. These are the investments of a media operation, a content producer, a broadcasting company with a global audience and a tightly controlled message. The financial center of gravity inside Jehovah's Witnesses has moved away from the local Kingdom Hall and toward the screen. The screen in the auditorium, the screen on your laptop, the screen in your pocket. Whatever the governing body is becoming, it looks less and less like a church, and more like a media network. Part 3. A mother in Ohio watches her son, baptized at 14, quietly stop attending meetings at 19. A father in Germany realizes his daughter has not pioneered in 2 years and no longer talks about Armageddon at the dinner table. A circuit overseer in England opens his laptop and sees that publisher numbers in his circuit have dropped for the 5th straight year. This is the conversation happening inside the organization that almost never reaches the platform. Growth is slowing. In the developed world, growth has stalled or reversed in countries that used to be strongholds. The annual reports still emphasize global totals, but the numbers beneath those totals tell a different story. Publisher counts in parts of Western Europe have been stagnant or declining for more than a decade. In the United States and Canada, the rate of young people leaving the religion has climbed steadily. A Pew Research study found that Jehovah's Witnesses have one of the lowest child retention rates of any major religious group in the United States, with roughly 2 out of 3 children raised in the religion leaving as adults. The exit of so-called PMO members, those who are physically in but mentally out, has become large enough to generate its own communities online. Entire podcasts, YouTube channels, and support networks now exist specifically for people who have left or are preparing to leave. The organization knows this. The branches know this. The service departments know this. And when an institution watches its traditional model shrink, it has only 2 options: disappear or adapt. The governing body has chosen to adapt. But adaptation inside a high-control religion cannot happen through open debate or democratic reform. It has to happen invisibly, through tone, through emphasis, through the gradual removal of things that no longer serve the institution, and the gradual introduction of things that do. Part 4. Watch a convention video from 1995. Then watch one from 2025. The difference is not doctrine. The doctrine is identical. The difference is the wrapping. The 1995 video is stark. Gray suits, fluorescent lighting, urgent warnings about the end. A brother at the microphone telling the audience they might never grow old in this system. The 2025 video is something else entirely. Soft, natural light, a family laughing around a dinner table, a grandmother hugging a grandchild in a field at golden hour, a pioneer biking through a European village. The music is gentle, the colors are warm. It looks like a wellness brand. It looks like lifestyle advertising. The language has shifted too. The phrase most ex-members remember hearing constantly, the idea that the end was so close you might never finish high school, never marry, never grow old, has faded from talks, conventions, and publications. In its place has come a new vocabulary: balance, well-being, mental health, self-care, reasonable service, family time, language that sounds almost therapeutic, language designed to blunt the old accusations of extremism, isolation, and burnout. The doctrine of shunning remains intact. The prohibition on blood remains intact. The authority of the governing body remains intact. But the face the organization presents to outsiders, and even to its own newer members, has been softened, smoothed, and polished for a different audience. Branding professionals would recognize it instantly. It is not reform. It is not reformation. It is image management. And when an organization starts managing its image this carefully, it is almost always because the old image has become a liability. Part 5. Why 2030? The organization has never published a target date. The governing body has repeatedly warned members against setting specific prophetic timelines, a warning made necessary by a long and painful history of failed predictions, stretching back more than a century. But 2030 keeps appearing as the gravitational point around which institutional decisions seem to be orbiting. And the reason has nothing to do with Armageddon. It has to do with courts. In 2022, the Norwegian Supreme Court stripped Jehovah's Witnesses of state recognition and financial support in Norway, citing the practice of shunning as a violation of human rights. In 2015, the Australian Royal Commission documented more than 1,000 alleged cases of child sexual abuse inside the organization, with no case reported to police. In the United Kingdom, charity regulators have repeatedly opened inquiries into how the organization handles abuse allegations. In the United States, multi-million-dollar settlements have begun to pile up. These are not isolated events. They are precedents. They ripple outward. Governments are watching each other. Regulators are coordinating. Transparency requirements are tightening every year. An organization that wants to survive the next decade in anything resembling its current form has to begin positioning itself now, not for the end of the world, for the end of the environment that once made its old model viable. The real question is not whether Armageddon arrives by 2030. The real question is whether the organization as it exists today can continue to function in the legal landscape of 2030 without fundamentally transforming itself first. The governing body appears to have already answered that question internally. And the answer is no. Part 6. A woman in Michigan walks out of her Kingdom Hall on a Sunday morning and tells her husband the meeting felt softer than it used to. Less pressure, less shaming. The elders looked tired. A man in Texas walks out of his Kingdom Hall the same morning and tells his wife the opposite. A brother was just disfellowshipped for something that would have been handled with a private warning 10 years ago. The Judicial Committee moved in a week. Both of them are right, because what is happening is not a uniform reform, it is a split. The public face of the organization, the face shown in videos, on the website, in carefully produced convention content, is being softened for the outside world. The internal discipline, the mechanisms of control, the doctrines that bind members tightly to the institution, remain intact. This is not hypocrisy in the casual sense. It is strategy. Organizations under pressure often present two faces: the face that wins sympathy from outsiders and legal protection from regulators, and the face that maintains cohesion and obedience among the core committed membership. The gap between those two faces is where ex-members live. It is the gap they see every time they compare a polished JW.org video to the reality of a shunning letter sent to a grieving family. It is the gap that makes the rebranding visible only to those who have already been inside it. And it is the gap the governing body hopes the rest of the world will never notice. Part 7. A religion that once defined itself by printed literature has moved to digital distribution. A religion that once warned of an imminent end has adopted the polished language of lifestyle branding. A religion that once owned thousands of local buildings has sold them and centralized the wealth. A religion that once relied on the invisibility of its internal culture has been forced into the spotlight by courts, parliaments, and journalists. In response to all of that pressure, the governing body has not announced reform. It has not acknowledged change. It has not apologized for the past. It has simply begun, quietly, to look different, to sound different, to present itself to the world as something more modern, more reasonable, more acceptable. Whatever you call this process, it is the slow construction of a new public identity for an institution that knows the old one cannot survive. By 2030, if current trends continue, the organization that calls itself Jehovah's Witnesses may still exist. The governing body may still sit in Warwick. The doctrines may still be recited. But the religion you see from the outside will not be the religion your parents or grandparents knew. It will be smoother, quieter, more digital, more careful, more corporate, and the people inside it may not even realize how much has changed until they look back and try to remember when it started. The governing body has not announced a rebrand. They never will. Because rebranding in a high-control religion does not begin with a press release. It begins with the quiet removal of things no one is allowed to question. A magazine that stops appearing, a meeting that is shortened, a phrase that stops being used, a building that gets sold, a tone that shifts, a video that looks a little too polished for the religion it is supposed to represent. Each change is small enough to dismiss. Together, they form a direction. And that direction points away from the religion Jehovah's Witnesses used to be and towards something that does not yet have a name. By 2030, the organization may still be preaching the same core doctrines, but the vehicle carrying those doctrines will be almost unrecognizable, and the members living inside it will be asked, as they have always been asked, not to notice. The question is whether the rest of the world will keep not noticing too, or whether the pattern, once seen, becomes impossible to unsee. If this investigation opened your eyes to something you had already begun to sense but couldn't quite name, share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe to follow the rest of this series, because the next videos go deeper into the money, the properties, and the internal documents that reveal where this organization is truly heading. And if you have your own story, from inside or outside the organization, leave it in the comments. Every voice adds to the pattern, and the pattern is the story.